What a great Monday morning listening to the legend. And Lenny, you and Andrea have a great trip to Indianapolis. Make sure Phil Chaplin buys your dinner tonight and your drinks, okay? No matter what, don't let him not get stuck with the bill. Deal? Okay? So that's the way we're going to start the show. Good morning, everybody. And it's a beautiful Monday morning here in North Carolina as well. It's Monday, September 16th. And we have 2 weeks left in the regular season for baseball. And tell me what, have you ever seen more exciting wild card races than in 2019? And I'm looking at the standings this morning, and we're only going to talk about wild card today because the division races are pretty much locked up, right? The American League. And you got 3 teams fighting for 2 spots, and you've got Oakland, winners of 6 in a row, 8 of their last 10. You've got Tampa Bay, winners of 7 of 10. And you've got Cleveland, who, but for yesterday, they were looking at being swept by the Twins. They lost 2 to Minnesota on Saturday. So as we look at the standings this morning, you've got Oakland. Good morning, Kevin Hastings. It's always good to see Royals 29. Boom. In the chat room. And good morning to all of you guys. Corona Cyclonus, Demazens, Doug Boyle, George, the legend still with us. NYC2RVA, Phil Chaplin, Kevin Hastings, Timothy Hooker, and Zelmo. It's good to see all of you this morning. Good morning to you, Chappie. And so post your questions, post your comments. Let's get into it. Let's dive deep. And let's first start talking about those Oakland A's, shall we? Because I have been a big fan of Oakland all year, and it just seems like every year the cast may change, but the plot remains. Billy Beane, now what he hasn't done yet, Billy Beane, he hasn't translated regular season success into postseason success. And I'm just wondering, could this be the year that Oakland challenges for American League supremacy? And I'm looking at their lineup, their everyday lineup. You've got Marcus Semien, solid, having one of his best years ever at shortstop. And when you look at Semien's numbers, I mean, when you were looking at the season, you were drafting Marcus Semien, what really would you have thought would have been the outlook for him statistically? Okay, let's talk about batting average. What batting average did you think Semien would have? Maybe 250? 255? How about his home runs? Were you hoping for 20? Good morning, Andrea. It's good to see you in the chat room. And don't let Lenny talk about your swollen eyes. Just look him straight in the eye and say, hey, let's go have a great day, right? Here's what I want to talk about. Looking at Semien, and 20 home runs maybe, 255 average. Is that fair enough? How about RBIs? Did you think about maybe 65, 70? Okay. Well, how about these numbers? A 282 batting average, 115 runs scored, 30 homers, 85 RBIs, and 10 stolen bases. And yet, when we talk about Mike Trout being most valuable player, yeah, I get it. I get it. I can't argue against Mike Trout for any superlative award. But I can argue that you take Marcus Semien hitting 282, he'll score 120 runs, he'll hit over 30 homers, probably drive in 90. Is he not in the most valuable player argument, conversation? He plays shortstop. And did you really think Oakland had a great shot at being the first wild card with 90 wins on September 16th? I don't think so. Where would Oakland be without Semien? And we can just go on. Let's take about another player. Matt Chapman. Last year, 3rd in the MVP voting. This year, batting average, not what you would expect or want, 250. But certainly, and this is not fantasy relevant, but a Gold Glover at 3rd, not even probably anyone else in the conversation save Nolan Arenado. He scored 95 runs. He's got 34 homers. He's got 85 RBIs. And, early in the year, Oakland, they start the year in Japan. Does that not seem like 20 years ago in a way? You got Oakland and you've got Seattle, and they open in Japan, and it's March, and there's snow on the ground in places in the United States. And game 2, Matt Olson breaks the hamate bone in his hand. And he's out. He's out for 6 weeks. But check these numbers out and consider the fact that Olson has missed the 6 weeks. 271 average. Way beyond what we're used to from Matt Olson. 34 home runs and 83 RBIs. And add 6 weeks to that, and you're easily looking at a 40 home run, 100 RBI player, and another player who's in the most valuable player conversation. And now we've got Chris Davis with a K. So let's talk about Chris Davis. Yeah, he's hitting 223. Yeah, he's only got 22 homers. But over his last 3 games, he is 4 for 12 with 2 home runs and 4 RBIs. A .333 average. 110 points over his season average. And I'm not going to go off on a limb here and say that, Davis is going to have a great end to the season. I am going to say that the last 3 games in Texas, he has looked more like the Chris Davis that we drafted in fantasy. Now, he's got 2 weeks to go. What does he do with that? Mark Canha. What a player. He has filled in the pinch. He has played different positions, hitting 270. He has 24 homers. Nobody saw that coming. Ramon Laureano, although injured, when he has played, he's been incredible. 286 batting average, 22 homers, 63 RBIs, 12 stolen bases. They bring up Seth Brown from the minor leagues. He went 2 for 4 yesterday, drove in a couple. He's hitting 385, playing the heck out of the center field when he's playing. They call up Sean Murphy, the catcher. What a prospect, hitting 440 since the call-up, 4 homers, 8 RBIs. Kevin Hastings says Chris Davis may finally be healthy. Good point, Kevin. And when you put all of these pieces in what's known as the Oakland A offensive puzzle, they're pretty darn good. In fact, they're really darn good. And if they continue to lead the wild card, that means playoff game number 1 is in Oakland. And now let's talk about the pitching. Because if you're the Oakland A's, to me, there's really not much question who's your game 1 starter. And I wouldn't have said this a month ago, but a month ago, Sean Manaea was not tearing up the American League. Since coming off the injured list, 2-0, 21 strikeouts. His ERA, I can barely see it, 0.50, and his whip, 0.67. And he pitched yesterday in hitter-friendly Texas, Arlington. 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts, and no runs. His outing before that, 7 innings, 10 strikeouts, and only 1 run. He had 11 swinging strikes yesterday, 19 called strikes. He's been incredible. 21 strikeouts and 6 walks since he came back from his injury. He's going to get almost a whole week off. Oakland knows what they're doing. He's going to be well rested for the wild card game. Now, take a scrap heap player like Homer Bailey. How many of you really thought at the beginning of the year you would ever think about having Homer Bailey on your fantasy baseball team this season? And I'm going to say, if your answer is, well, I did, well, I'm going to say you were crazy at the beginning of the season. I mean, here was a guy that Cincinnati just basically said, take him, Dodgers. Dodgers took him and said, we don't want him. We cut him. Kansas City picks him up. He pitches effectively. And now for Oakland, he's pitching really well. Look at these numbers. His last 5 starts. This is Homer Bailey. I know we're talking about mirrors and windows here. I'm going back to August 14th. 7 innings, no earned, 7 strikeouts. August 20th against the Yankees. Important to note, the Yankees. 5 2/3, 1 earned, 8 strikeouts. August 26th, 6 innings, 3 earned, 3 strikeouts, no walks. On August 31st, again against the Yankees. 5 2/3, 2 earned, 9 strikeouts. Yesterday not yesterday, but 9-12 at Houston. He went into the 6th inning with 1 earned run and 4 strikeouts. So of those 6 games he has started, the least he has gone is 5 1/3. He's gone into the 6th inning in every start of his last 5. 3 of those 6 starts against either Houston or the Yankees, and in a combined 17 innings against those 2 best record clubs, he's only given up 4 runs. Okay, you can say, well, it's Homer Bailey. Well, it may be Homer Bailey, but the proof is in the pudding. If all we went by were names, okay, then Lorenzo Cain might be MVP. Correct? He's not. He's having a bad year. Bailey's having a good year. And yes, we have to look at baseball. It's Janet Jackson's son. What have you done for me lately? And Homer Bailey is a viable playoff pitcher. Now the question would be Mike Fiers, who's been incredible up until his last 2 starts. Bob Melvin said yesterday that he expects Fiers, who's had a tight forearm, to make his upcoming start in next week's home series against the Rangers. The examinations don't reveal anything of concern. He's not going on the long-term IL or anything like that. He's listed as day-to-day. He's going to be evaluated today. The belief is he's only suffering from a minor stinger. He'll be able to keep that rotation date going this coming weekend. The A's are off Thursday. And a 6-man rotation for the A's to close out the season makes the most sense. Here's a player that Lenny likes who's pitching effectively. I don't know where he'll fall in the playoffs. Tanner Roark coming over at the trade deadline. But the pitcher that really turns me on. Are you ready? Jesus Luzardo. Did you watch him yesterday against Texas? If you didn't, I want you to go look at swinging strike 3 to Ruffin Odor. You got to look at it. He throws him a slider that starts off looking like a fastball down the middle of the plate. It winds up at least a foot off the plate in the dirt. Odor swings and strikes out. Luzardo in the 8th inning yesterday, and I think this is critical. He pitched a 3-inning save for the A's. If you don't have him on your fantasy team, you need to go get him. Because he's going to get multiple innings. He's going to get some saves. He's going to get some holds. He's going to get a lot of strikeouts. He'd be a great bullpen piece if you're in a holds league. But in reality, he worked himself into a bases-loaded, no-out jam in the 8th inning. And he only gave up 1 run and worked himself out of it. Came on, pitched the 9th, was perfect in the 9th. This kid has got something going on. When he realized Texas was looking for the fastball, George says, I'd rather have Homer Simpson than Homer Bailey. I understand. I'm only talking, though, George, about his last 6 starts. There haven't been many better than Bailey in his last 6. which is why Oakland's 90-60 and leading the wild card in the American League in part. But Luzardo, and then you look at their bullpen, and has Liam Hendricks, again, did you draft Liam Hendricks in fantasy drafts this year? Did you do it? No, you didn't do it. Is he on your team now? Probably. 22 saves, a 1.61 ERA. And Doug, I say that what I was impressed with, yeah, that is a positive way to look at it for sure. But what I thought was interesting is Melvin let him get in a jam, and then Bob Melvin let him work himself out of it. So that's why I'm thinking this kid is special. There's something to Jesus Luzardo. And there's something to these Oakland Athletics. So I like Oakland. How about the other team in the American League? How about Tampa? And I've already told you, I like Tampa and Oakland to make the wild card. I've been saying that for a couple of weeks now. This is nothing new. And you know that. If you've been listening to my shows in the morning, you know I've been pumping up them and not pumping up Cleveland. I just don't think Cleveland's offense is good enough. And I'm a little concerned about their back bullpen at this point. But Tampa, 89-62. I look at their schedule. Tampa off today. Now the A's, let's go back to the A's just a minute. The A's have a 3-game set with Kansas City in Oakland. And that's like dessert, right? Tampa, they've got some tough ones coming up first of the week. They play the Dodgers. And they're playing in Dodger Stadium. So the critical part of the season for wild card purposes with 11 games to go are the next 3 for Tampa that start on Tuesday at Dodger Stadium. How they play in those games will have a lot to say about their control of their own destiny. Then on the weekend they go home and they play the Red Sox. Now, frankly, I'm not as concerned about those games as I would normally be for a Tampa Bay. I'm not a Tampa Bay fan. I'm a Yankee fan, all right? But Boston, they're playing for nothing. By the end of the week, they'll probably be eliminated from all playoff possibilities. They're already eliminated in the East. I think they're 4 games from elimination in the wild card. So a combination of 4 Oakland wins or losses by Boston, and Boston's out. Okay? So they're probably going to be eliminated by the end of the week. And they're going to bring up kids to play, and that'll be fun. But Tampa's on a mission. And as I look at the Rays, I look first, as always, at their pitching. And we know they've got Charlie Morton. And we know Charlie Morton is your prototypical ace. But there's much more than Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton, though, 15-6. He'll pitch Friday against Boston. He's only had 1 bad outing in his last 6 outings. But here's the wild card, I think. You've got Blake Snell. Pitched for Durham, AAA over the weekend, their playoffs. He's expected to start tomorrow against the Dodgers. Now, he's probably not fully stretched out, so don't look at him. Malpow, I'm right on you. Blake Snell back this week. Blake Snell's back tomorrow. Probably not fully stretched out, but he's probably throw around 3 innings. It'll be like a bullpen game. But he's back. That's the key. He's back. He'll probably get 3 starts before the playoffs. So can't you see him being worked up to regular strength as the playoffs get here? So now you add Morton, you add Snell. A pitcher that, did you draft him? And the answer is no. You didn't draft Ryan Yarborough, who's 11-4. Who didn't pitch well yesterday against LA. But before that, he's been pitching really well in the starting rotation. Glass now, back off the DL. He's starting Saturday against Boston. He pitched on the 14th, 3 innings, 2 hits, 5 strikeouts. So if we get to the end of the year, Tampa has all their horses coming back into the stable. And they've got this incredible bullpen. Pagan, Pache, Anderson. Nick Anderson finally gave up earned runs last week since coming over to Tampa. Brandon McKay, who yesterday pinch hit, got a hit. Great rookie arm. I know he's a rookie. Chaz Rowe. I mean, the bullpen is so deep in Tampa. George, great move getting Ryan Yarbrough. There's something about the water in Houston and in Tampa when it comes to starting pitching. And I want to drink it if I'm a fantasy owner, and I want to add these players to my fantasy teams. But that's not all Tampa has. Let's talk about their batters. And if any of you guys been noticing Austin Meadows of late, yeah, has he not been off the charts? A homer yesterday, hits in 6 straight games. He's now hitting .289 on the year, 31 homers, 87 RBIs, 11 stolen bases. He was out for a little while with some minor injuries, but he's back. And Phil Chaplin, I just got to say it, just for you and me. Okay? Just got to. Don't you know the Pirates are just saying, what in the world did we do that for? I wish we hadn't had that one more drink and made that trade and traded away Austin Meadows and Tyler Glasnow. But they did, and the Tampa Bay Rays are the big beneficiaries there. Tommy Pham, scrap heap by the Cardinals. He's got 20 homers and 22 stolen bases this year. Travis d'Arnaud, where did he come from? Talk about a scrap heap. Catching first base, 16 homers, 65 RBIs. He's not even played the whole year there. Joey Wendell, you look at his numbers overall, it's not a great year, but of late, Joey Wendell's hitting over 350 over the last few weeks. The hitting has been timely. The pitching has been the best in the American League statistically. Tampa, these 3 games with LA, let's pay careful attention to those. If Tampa can come out of that without being swept, and what if they win the series? The momentum they would have then going back home to play the Red Sox over the weekend, that sounds divine, doesn't it? And then you look at their schedule for the rest of the year, which we're getting ready to do. So after they finish with Boston, they play the Yankees too, an off day, and then finish the season at Toronto. Tampa has 2 off days and 11 games to go. So the off days will help. The pitching coming back. I just see Snell. I just see Glasnow against Boston this weekend. Those are 4 games with the Red Sox at home. Now, what I'm interested in there is, have you ever been to a game at Tropicana Field involving the Yankees or the Red Sox? Because if you have, then this will make perfect sense what I'm getting ready to say. If you had been blindfolded and kept your blindfold on and told you're at a Yankee Ray or a Red Sox Ray game and you based it on crowd noise, you would think the Rays were playing an away game. There are more loud cheering fans watching the Red Sox and Rays typically in Tropicana Field pulling for Boston. This weekend with the Red Sox eliminated, that shift should change. And I fully expect the crowd for the 4 with Boston and the 2 with the Yankees to be alive and kicking. Then they finish the season with 3 at Toronto, and that should not be a bad situation. Again, I think it comes back to the 3 coming up with LA. Let's talk about some National League wild card where we got, last week I told you I was a little concerned about Washington. Go back, listen to my podcast. I was a little concerned about Washington. They had a healthy lead, but I told you their schedule coming up was not kind. They were playing the Braves. They're only now leading the Cubs by a game and a half for the first wild card. The Cubs have woken up. The Bears are out of hibernation. They have won 4 in a row, and they're still in that second wild card hunt. And with only 10 or so games to go, I'm going to only talk about 3 teams this morning. I'm no longer talking about the Mets. I'm no longer talking about the Phillies, Diamondbacks. They're not in my discussion. I'm not saying they can't rejuvenate, but as of now, they're out. I'm going to talk about the Brewers. What's going on with Milwaukee? Christian Yelich goes out a week or so ago, and since then, the Brewers have won 9 out of 10. They only trail the Cubs by 1 game in the second wild card. They're without Yelich. Did you see what happened to Rizzo yesterday? He goes out with an injury. We'll probably find out today the extent of that. You know they're without Javi Baez, their most valuable player. So both the Cubs and the Brewers are playing wounded as we head down the stretch. And Washington, not the hot team that they were either. Looking at some schedules coming up, and I think the schedules are so important. Let's first look at the Nats. I told you their schedule is not necessarily the easiest in the world. It may have gotten easier if Cleveland gets eliminated. Here's why. They are at St. Louis for 3 starting today. They're off on Thursday, and then they're at Miami. And I know it's the Marlins, but it is in Miami, and the Marlins can pitch a little bit for the weekend. Okay, then they come home to finish the season. And in a 7-day span, they play 8 games. No rest for the weary for the Nationals. They have the Phillies for 5. The Phillies for 5 beginning next Monday through next Thursday, a doubleheader on Tuesday. And then they have Cleveland coming in for 3 to conclude the season. That's not an easy schedule. How about the other 2 teams? Let's take a look at the Brewers. And I know I deep dive into the American League, but the National League just is intriguing. The Brewers, they only have 1 off day the rest of the season. It's a week from today. They play the whole week. So if you're in fantasy and you have Brewers, you have 7 games this week. They are home all week. 4 at home with the Padres and 3 at home with the Pirates. I like that. They go on the road next week, 3 at Cincinnati and 3 at Colorado. The schedule makers are kind to the Brew Crew. Not so much to the Little Bears on the north side of Chicago. They play Cincinnati for 3. The Reds play the Cubs tough. Then they're home with the Cardinals this weekend, 4 games. Critical. Off Monday at Pittsburgh for 3. Close the season at St. Louis for 3. 13 games, 14 days. Without a Rizzo, without a Baez. Where are the hits going to come from? Well, let's talk about it. I believe in the Cubs. I really do. Should I? I don't know. You tell me. What do you think, chat room? I know yesterday they beat the Pirates 16-6. And Doug Boyle says the Cubs scored more runs in this past series than they had since becoming the Cubs. So who's doing it? Well, Nick Castellanos. I mean, has he not been... You talked about most valuable player. He's going to be the player over 160 games. But since Castellanos was traded from the Tigers to the Cubs, who has been better in the National League? No one. He went 3 for 5 yesterday. On the season, he's at 294, 26 homers, but those numbers are not true to form of what he's done while with the Cubs. 13 homers in 40 games. Are you kidding me? He's the Cubs MVP. Chris Bryant went 3 for 5 yesterday with 4 RBIs. Kyle Schwarber, 3 for 5 yesterday with 3 RBIs. Castellanos has 54 doubles on the year. That's unheard of. Bryant has 31 homers. Happ has 6. Schwarber has 36 homers. So Kyle Schwarber and Chris Bryant and Nick Castellanos have taken the Cubs on their back and said, let's go for a ride, boys. And now with Rizzo out, what do we make of Happ coming in for Rizzo? Is Ian Happ, Lenny Melnick, you're going to love this if it happens. Is Ian Happ for the Cubs going to finally be the player they thought he would now that they need him the most with Rizzo out and we don't know for how long? Horner, the shortstop, a lot of people thought he's not going to be relevant in fantasy. Well, he's only hitting 379 since he's been called up. And if you don't think that's relevant, then you don't know what you're talking about. Hayward went 1 for 3. I'm telling you, I just think there's something in the Cubs. They're going to come around. They're going to unite. They're going to play hard. And they're going to secure that other wild card. I think the Nats hang on. I just don't think the Brewers can continue to play at the pace they have played, even though the schedule makers are kind. But it's going to be a race to the end. The Brewers have found a way to do it. And there's just something about them. And so here's where I'm at. It wouldn't shock me for the Nationals to fall out. I would not be surprised to see Washington fade, Milwaukee and Chicago make it. You're going to say, well, Arnie, you're absolutely nuts. Well, maybe I am. But it's the way teams play this time of year. And I'm watching the games, and there's just something about those teams. And Andrea says, go Cardinals. And the Cardinals are looking back, and they're having to say, whoo, I'm glad it's not me. And the Cardinals are playing great. Dakota Hudson, Flaherty, are you kidding me? These two pitchers leading the way. But I like the Cubs, I like the Brewers, and it would not surprise me if the Nats fade away. We'll keep our eye on it. And that's our show for today. So tomorrow I will not be on. I will be on Wednesday morning. Tomorrow night I will be on with my good buddy and compadre, Phil Chaplin, who can tell me all about buying Lenny and Andrea dinner tonight and drinks. I can't wait to hear the story. But we're going to do an hour and a half show tomorrow night, 7 to 8:30. The Chat Man and me together again for an hour and a half. Football, baseball, mostly probably football. And then I'll be back with you Wednesday morning. Now, let's look at our schedule for today. Pitches Get Stitches at 1. Kevin Hastings, Aloha Fantasy Baseball. A great show on at 2 today. Roto Imbeciles on at 6:30. And Fantasy Fisticuffs Baseball on at 11. I want to thank all of you guys for being in the chat room with me this morning. It's been a great show. You guys in the chat room make the show, okay? You really do. And it's just awesome to see you here on a Monday morning. Thank you for supporting this show, Lenny's show, and all the shows on the network. Go watch you some baseball. We're going to have a great wild card race to the finish. Have a great day, everybody, from Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports.